We are recording. We are not live.
We are not live because live is jive.
Yeah, because live sucked. We had bad latency issues or whatever that word is, and could not get the. We were dropping like 60% of our frames, so YouTube was not happy with us.
But anyway, the purpose of this was to quickly cover what happened to the old engine, what you did or got a new engine.
Yeah, basically, I started putting out some shorts and stuff of putting this motor together, and they were getting a ton of views, and so I was like, oh, it's cool, we'll do a live when we start it. And yeah, we tried for the last hour and a half, 2 hours to get it to work, and I can't get it to work, so we're going to pretend like we're live, even though we're not live.
And this is going to be a completely unedited, uncut, just raw video that gets uploaded.
And I will upload it as soon as we're done editing. He just said editing. We're not going to edit at all.
So this was an hour ago. When you're watching this, this will have been as recent as an hour ago. But anyway, let's review real quick. The old engine that used to be in your car was a pretty much stock LS1, a real deal aluminum block LS1.
Yeah, 2002, I think I had a Trans Am or Camaro LS1, had 90,000 miles on it, so when it spun a rod bearing, it's probably about 95,000 miles maybe, maybe a little more than that. But
and the only thing that you did to it, you gapped the piston rings, you put ARP hardware in the thing, it had a Brian Tooley cam.
Yep, BTR Stage 3 cam, blower cam on it, and put the Cadillac CTSV or ZL1 blower on it.
Otherwise, it was stock.
Stock bottom end, basically. I think
even the cylinder heads are stock.
Yeah, stock cylinder heads. Still had the stock main bolts and all that stuff. And I did put ARP rod bolts in, which 90% of the people told me that was a dumb thing to do. And
to describe why that's dumb, because those are split caps on an LS engine, right? They're cracked caps or whatever they call them. And when you put those new bolts in, the torque spec is different.
Yeah, like ARP torques them down like twice as tight or something.
It's
so
not
maybe
twice.
Not twice as tight, but it's a bunch more foot-pounds more, and so it...
Yeah, instead of it being a perfect circle, which the big end of your connecting rod must be a perfect circle, otherwise you have bearing failure. When you tighten it down more, it kind of ovaled it, or whatever. And I think that lends to premature bearing wear.
Yeah, so you're obviously wearing one part of the bearing out more than the other, and then it grabs and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
and you can't do like a normal connecting rod. You can hone that big end a little bit by removing material from the rod cap, and then it, instead of a circle, it's now an oval, and then you hone it back, perfectly circular. But you can't do that with this.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you can probably just, you can't, because then it's...
Well, I think they make rod bearings that are bigger on the OD.
Yeah.
But anyway, none of that happened because this was a stock engine that just had different bolts put into it. And you ran it for quite a while. I mean, 4 years,
I think
something
it
like that.
was it 15 or it was 16, and it blew up in 21,
So
21.
5 years you ran it, so
yeah.
And you weren't nice to it. I mean, you thrashed it pretty hard.
I never even tuned it all the way.
It seemed to run pretty good to me.
Never tuned it for boost that well. I just merged all the cells from no boost to whatever the HP tuners goes up to for boost at that ass.
So when it failed, exactly what did happen? It was a connecting rod bearing?
Yeah, it spun number 6 bearing, and it was the weirdest thing. It spun the bearing on the birthday cruise or the Kingsman cruise, I don't remember which one it was, and it was just a real faint knock above 2,000 RPM, just like almost like a tick. It almost sounded lifter tickish.
But
so
it got worse.
We drove it home, and the next weekend I had to take my son to something, drop him off somewhere, and I didn't have, my truck had the trailer on it, my wife was gone, so I was like, we'll just take the Shevelle, it'll be fine. And so we had about 20 minutes to kill before we had to really go, so we went and cruised around, did a lap down O Street, and I figured, I don't think he's been in it. Well, he has, but he hadn't been in it since I really ripped. Oh, he had never been on it with the drag radials, that's what it was.
Oh.
So I got the drag radials the day before it spun a rod bearing too. That was cool. So I put sticky tires on it, ruined rod bearings. And so I went for a rip on it on West O on the bridge, and we pulled up going down to 9th Street, and it sounded like there was a midget in the bottom of the motor with a sledgehammer just banging the shit out of it. And I was like, well, let's see if we can get it home. It's already fucked. And
you did get home, right?
We got home. By the time we got to 48th and O Street, it had quit knocking completely and was back to running the exact same it was before I floored it going down to 9th and O. It was weird. I don't know how it happened or what happened. It healed itself, I said.
Where's that rod? Is that rod laying around here, or is it put away somewhere?
Oh, yeah, it's up top. But
okay.
Yeah, the crank was shot. I forget what he said. It needed a ton. It couldn't be ground. So that led up to me finding a 6-liter from a buddy that was a know-nothing motor. It was a 6-liter that they didn't know anything about.
So you just parted out a truck and had this motor or whatever?
$300. I said, I'll take it regardless because that's too good of a deal to pass up. Ended up pulling it apart. Ended up being fairly decent. There was a couple questionable bearings where it looked like they were getting pretty wore out or grooved. But the crank's going to need to be ground and cleaned.
This is, okay, yeah, so I know which engine you're talking about.
Yeah, so I've acquired multiple 6-liters.
Trying to find a good one that you can use.
And so I took that, the LS1 and the 6-liter to the machine shop, and
which you will see videos of that later. Even right now today, they're still at.
It's still at the machine shop. So I just got the text message this evening that he got all the stuff done tonight. So it's ready to be picked up or this afternoon or whatever. I took that 6-liter and tested the block, or had the block Magnaflux checked for cracks. Everything came back good on it. And then so it's like, okay, I need to get a set of pistons, and it's like, well, if we're gonna do pistons, because we're gonna need to do rods, and it's like
you're running boost,
cranks,
get good pistons.
Crank's already gonna need to be ground, so it's like, all right. So I went ahead and ordered a Summit LS Pro line or Pro LS line or whatever.
What is Summit? I've never heard of her.
She's a beaut. I don't know. Summit Racing. And well, hey, I talked to you about that, and
I guess whatever, dude. Anyway, so you have this block and you have all these parts ordered, so you're going to build this really kick-ass short block, it sounds like.
Yes, and with all the COVID bullshit from supply chain issues and shit backed up now, we're still feeling the ramifications from that, probably worse than we did during COVID. The piston rings are still on back order, and they're not going to come in until the end of June is our estimated ship date. So by that time, by the time I got it back here, got the stuff done, or got the stuff to the machine shop, we ended up getting all the other parts besides the piston ring, so they were able to do the machine work on the motor. So that's why it's done today.
Mm-hmm.
What is it, the 26th of May instead of July? So I wouldn't be able to get the motor back together because it'd probably take me a couple weeks once I got all the parts to take my time and put it back together and get it back in the car. So now we're looking at mid July or August at best case scenario to get in the car.
And we're into that part of the season where you need, or don't need, but you really want the car to be on the road. I mean, this is when all the good car shows are happening, cruises. I mean, you're going to miss out on the whole summer if you don't get it going now.
So my idea was, it's just going to be down. I can't help it. It is what it is. Stupid back order stuff. And we went to a barbecue over at my buddy Mike's house, and his neighbor was pulling a 6-liter, just pulled it out of his truck. He was going down the road and it lost all power, and he thought he broke a crank. So rather than diagging it, looking at it, he just assumed it was a broken crank. So bought a new low mileage 6-liter from Florida. God knows how much he paid for that. And I just went over there and I just spent all that money on the rotating assembly that day when this 6-liter deal came up.
That's when the best deals happen, is after you don't need it anymore.
Because I bought the LSA heads too.
After you don't need it anymore, you know?
So I spent fucking almost $4,000 one day on all that stuff, $3,800 I think, and then it was like, well, what do you want for that 6-liter? I was expecting him to say $1,200 or $1,000 or something, and he goes, I don't know, probably $500. And I go, okay, well, I wish I wouldn't have spent all that money today. I kind of played hardball, like I wasn't that interested in it.
Well, you weren't really, because you already spent all your money.
But I was saying $500 is a pretty good deal. And so I probably want to pick this up. And Mike was like, well, you could get your car running for the summer. And I was like, yeah, I don't know.
Those gears start spinning in your mind.
Yeah, so I'm kind of him and hawing around with the guy. And I was like, you know what? For $500, I'll take the risk, not knowing if something's really wrong with it. What ended up happening is once he started pulling the trans or whatever to pull the motor out, the flex plate broke. So it seems like a really cheap fix.
Why did the engine quit running then?
I think it just quits connecting to everything.
Well, yeah, it wouldn't be connected to anything if the
but
flywheel
I mean,
was
like,
broken.
so I think it broke the flywheel, and he said the engine wouldn't work, and it's because it wouldn't go.
It doesn't work.
It don't work right.
Oh, it wouldn't work very good.
So
he put a new engine in there really for no reason, and you have this perfectly good engine with what is it, 150,000 miles?
Yeah, it was 181. He said 1,000 miles on it. So took a chance, bought it. It was dirty. It was in a work truck, and but everything inside looked pretty good. So gapped the rings, and that's this motor here that's in the car now currently. So this is kind of my summer. I keep calling it the summer motor because it's going to get me through the summer, and then next winter,
the other 6
I can
liter,
pull the other 6 liter and get
the big bad wolf.
the big bad wolf, which is just a 30 over 6 liter.
Yeah, but it's full of nice stuff.
Full of nice stuff, yeah. So maybe we can put a couple more pounds to it.
So quick rundown. This is really very similar to the 5.7 that used to be in this car, except it's just whatever.
This is exactly like the 5.7 minus the ARP rod bolts. It's got factory rod bolts in it.
Exactly the same Brian Tooley camshaft.
Yep.
The exact same cylinder heads went back on.
Same heads, yeah. LS9 gaskets.
The short block is just the stock 6 liter with gapped rings.
Yep, and it's got the same adapter plates and everything on it, obviously, and nothing. It's basically the exact same thing, just with a few more cubic inches. That's right.
I heard you.
I said it. So that's the story, the long and the short of it.
Oh, the other weird thing, just because I'm thinking of it, this engine had a really weird adapter on the back of the crankshaft.
Yeah.
Where is that thing? I've never seen this before, and I don't know tons about LS stuff. I know just enough to be dangerous. But I know that the early 6 liters had a long crankshaft, and I think the reason is because with like a 4L80, probably not a 4L60, but a 4L80 was still like the Turbo 400 bell housing and torque converter, because 4L80s were like the replacement for the Turbo 400 in the 90s. So anyway, I know that some 6 liters have a long crank.
And this was I think it might have been a 2000 pickup truck, or
so maybe. It had this weird adapter thing on here, and it just unbolted. I've never seen that before.
You can buy those for if you're adapting, a modern LS to a 400 or a 350 or something.
Well, yeah, since an LS crank typically is longer than like a small block or big block would be.
Did you say that backwards?
No, an LS crank is small block crank's normally longer. So if you take an old engine like a Muncie Force or an old transmission Muncie 4-speed, the Turbo 350, Turbo 400, whatever, and want to put it together with an LS engine, you need something like this that extends the back of the crank to center onto the torque converter.
Mm-hmm. Otherwise,
or move the flex plate backwards. Really, is what it's for.
Yeah.
Or a dished flex plate. They make those too. But I just never saw. I never saw anything like this before, and this is kind of as Colin would say, a nice piece.
Yeah, I'm going to keep that piece because
might come in handy.
For the next project, there's a good chance there will be a 400 or a 350 behind this motor. Actually, when this motor comes out, I think this is the plan anyway. When this motor comes out, it's going to get a turbo cam in it and get twin turbos and probably go in that 53 mail truck or whatever it is, 47 mail truck. I don't know.
Dual snail mail or whatever you call
Twin
it.
snail mail.
Twin snail mail.
Yeah, so I'll get that thing up and I'll get that thing here sooner than later. And the other cool thing is currently right now at the moment, I think all of the cars that I own run. I haven't had all my cars running for a long time.
That is a weird coincidence.
It's a weird feeling.
It's not going to last forever, though.
No. Well, Prelude tried to like burn itself down the other day. The ECU started on fire, so
Yeah.
it's running, but it's not running on the proper ECU. It's got a non-VTEC ECU in it now.
So last night you finished buttoning up a bunch of stuff on this, you know, the accessories, the coolant lines, whatever else you were doing to it.
Yep.
And you just, excuse me, you just barely lit it off for a second just to make sure there's no fuel leaks and other stuff, but it really hasn't run for more than 2 seconds or something.
Yeah, it probably ran for a few more seconds than that just to make sure I had oil pressure and stuff like that. But yeah, it's, oh, I guess I did have an aftermarket oil pump in this too. That's different.
It's the same pump that the old engine
But it's
had.
the same one. Took it apart and cleaned it. So just wanted to make sure I got it put back together right.
I think we ought to hear it.
It just, let's see.
I'm going to get out of the way of the front so that I don't get ran over.
See if it'll start first try.
That's amazing to me that you can just fire it right back up. I guess I should wait a second for the camera to, or the
It should be
microphone to normalize, but it's amazing that you can just fire it right back up and it runs as good as it does.
Yeah, it's still burning the oil and stuff off of the headers and you know, from
Yeah, I
putting it
can-
back together. Still
I can
smoking.
smell all the, you know,
That fresh paint being baked
it is.
on.
Yeah.
So
Well, I guess we should wrap this up so you can hurry up and upload this.
Yeah.
And then,
alright guys. That's a wrap. Summer motor is in the Shevelle, and this live was an utter failure, but at least the 6 liter wasn't. So
hey, if the live is a failure, that's fine, but you just want to make sure the motor isn't a failure.
that's absolutely true. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.